Hello and welcome to What's the Story Ghost. I'm your host Annette.
And I'm Steven.
And today we are on episode 43. Steven, the Stanley Hotel, do you know it?
No, I know it was Stanley Blade.
Do you just think of just random things that have absolutely nothing to do with...
I would say the best answer to that is, generally speaking, I don't think. And with that bombshell...
Can you crack on?
Crackety crack.
If, like me, you've never read the book, the Overlook Hotel will go right over your head. If you have seen The Shining, you'll know it's the hotel from Stephen King's best-selling novel. Now, the drama over the differences between the movie and the novel is still discussed and argued today over which is better, but that's a rabbit hole for a different day. Pack your overnight bag, we're going to the Stanley Hotel.
What's the Story Ghost will not actually be paying for listeners to stay at the haunted hotel, because Annette's a big fraidy cat and won't stay there, so close your eyes and imagine that's the best we can do. Terms and conditions apply.
If you go by most ghost stories of families having to stay in an empty, off-season hotel with no booking as a last resort, you picture a creepy, run-down single-story motel. You picture a creepy receptionist who hasn't stopped looking down your white blouse since you got to the counter. Or you picture an ice machine that is seriously in need of a replacement because the motor sounds like a B-52 bomber that's of course located just outside your tiny room, and you wonder would you have been better off sleeping in your car. This may have been Stephen King's situation, but the Stanley Hotel was not that creepy motel. It is a beautiful 140-room colonial revival hotel. Don't ask me to describe a colonial revival, just trust me, it's really, really pretty. If it helps, I can paint a picture of the location. It's about 5 miles from the entrance to the Rocky Mountains. It was built by Freeland Oscar Stanley of Stanley Steamer and opened July 4th, 1909 as a resort for the upper-class Easterners and a health retreat for sufferers of pulmonary tuberculosis, not unlike Freeland, who was diagnosed and given months to live. So the move makes sense. The location was perfect, with panoramic views of Lake Estes, the Rockies, and Long's Peak. We covered the open space and fresh air belief in our Trans-Allegheny episode. Now I should mention before we go any further, in case, like me, you thought the movie was shot at the hotel. If I'm honest, the only movie I know of that was actually shot on the grounds of the hotel was by far the most iconic, revolutionary and inspiring movie of the 90s, Dumb and Dumber. The Timberline Lodge at Mount Hood, Oregon was used for the Overlook's exterior in the movie, and its interiors were all original and built on a soundstage in Ells Street Studios in England. Freeland Oscar Stanley and his wife Flora moved to the Rocky Mountains from their home in Massachusetts in 1903 for health reasons, as we mentioned. They founded the hotel in 1909 because in 1907, yes, he was feeling much better, but he was growing tired of the rustic accommodation, lazy pastimes, relaxation and lack of social life. So 2 years later, a 48-roomed grand hotel was built. It was designed to cater for a class of moderately wealthy, as well as those seeking a healthful climate. Stanley must have had the right idea. He lived till he was 91, dying only 1 year after his wife. Some say it was a heart attack. I think he was heartbroken. Hotel guests over the years have claimed to see the Stanley spirits wandering around the hotel. Mr. Stanley has been spotted at the hotel's front desk keeping an eye on things. Mrs. Stanley still plays the piano in the music room. Numerous guests have heard the piano music coming from the music room, even when no one is at the piano. The concert hall was built for Mrs. Stanley as a gift. The stage even has a trap door that was used for theatrical entrances and exits. Another spirit said to be fond of the concert hall is Paul. Back in the hotel's early days, Paul used to enforce the 11 p.m. curfew, so we can guess who's responsible for telling guests nowadays to get out of the concert hall. In June 1911, there was a horrible accident. Seemingly the hotel's electricity was having awful trouble keeping up during a particularly nasty storm. So they decided to use an auxiliary acetylene gas lighting system, which was installed the previous winter but never filled with gas or used. The hotel's housekeeper, Lizzie Littenberg, went into room 217 to light lanterns while the pipes were still filling with gas. Suddenly one of the lanterns exploded, causing the floor to give way, sending the housekeeper down to the level below into the McGregor dining room. The explosion destroyed about 10% of the hotel and did about $10,000 worth of damage, about $312,000 today. She somehow survived the blast and continued to work at the hotel for years. But guests of room 217 swear they still see her spirit in the room now and then, tidying things up, items moved, luggage unpacked, and lights being turned on and off. Lizzie was very old-fashioned and therefore not a big fan of unmarried couples sleeping in the same bed. So much so that some couples have reported feeling a cold force between them. Leave room for the Holy Ghost. When they wake up, they often find that the gentleman's effects have been packed and his luggage is left by the door. The 4th floor has a few of its own spooky reports. You know, nice stuff like children laughing, giggling and playing, not creepy at all. Now, it is said that the 4th floor was reserved for female employees, their children and nannies, so I think it's more of an echo than a haunting. Rooms and corridors that for years capture the sounds of children being children. And then there's rooms 407, 418 and 428 on the 4th floor. Lord Dunraven, who owned the land before Stanley, is said to haunt room 407. There have been reports of guests seeing his face in the window when the room's not even booked. Room 418 is said to be haunted by children whose laughter can be heard in the hallways by guests and cleaning crew. And then there's the pet cemetery. Now, when I say pet cemetery, don't panic. It's not like the hotel has a plot covered in bone and ball of yarn headstones. There were 2 beloved pets that now rest there, and they like to roam around the hotel. Cassie, a golden retriever, and Comanche, a fluffy white cat. They've both been seen and heard all around the property. Stephen King described in short how his visit went.
We were the only guests, as it turned out. The following day they were going to close the place down for the winter. Wandering through its corridors, I thought it seemed the perfect, maybe the archetypical setting for a ghost story. That night I dreamed of my 3-year-old son running through the corridors, looking back over his shoulder, eyes wide, screaming. He was being chased by a fire hose. I woke up with a tremendous jerk, sweating all over, within an inch of falling out of the bed. I got up, lit a cigarette, sat on the chair looking out the window at the Rockies, and by the time the cigarette was done, I had the bones of my book firmly set in my mind.
I love a good ghost story as much as the next person, probably more than the next person. But what I find hardest to get my head around is there are no, and I mean no, mentions of any ghost stories before Stephen King's stay at the hotel. Now, I refuse point blank to say people who have had an experience, be it a sighting or hearing something, didn't actually see or hear anything, because to them they really did, even if it is only an anecdote for some. But what does give me the heebie-jeebies, aside from all the haunted rooms and the grand staircase, the piano playing by itself, and a cowboy ghost, oh yes, there's a cowboy ghost, what really blows my mind is the tunnel underneath the hotel. Used today and back in the day as a way for staff to get around unseen, how very Disneyland of them. But the bed of the tunnel is made of quartz, limestone, mica and granite, which are all conductors of spiritual energy. When Stanley began construction, he didn't want to use dynamite because he felt it was too expensive, so he dug into the bedrock of the mountain, which created the tunnel. In my opinion, that's why people see spirits at the Stanley Hotel. I know that was really short, but what did you think of that story?
I think it was really good. It was like listening to how The Shining came about. It was cool that he was like, I'm just going to have... I could just imagine him sitting in, I want to say 1970s or 1980s, like brown, comfortable looking chair, but not super comfortable at the same time. Just looking out in this big window, looking out into the Rockies in the dark room, but kind of like a waft of smoke around his head.
Now, can I ask you, is it very hard for you not to picture Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
It is very hard to picture anybody else. Even though I know what Stephen King looked like, I still can't picture Stephen King. I picture Jack Nicholson. But even Stephen King did say it doesn't matter what room he stayed in, he didn't feel anything when he was there. It's just coincidental that it happened to be in the room that Lizzie was injured in.
Yeah.
But I didn't mention it there because I figured we could just chat about it now. He had writer's block. That's why he just needed to get out and go somewhere and stay somewhere. So it wasn't like circumstantial that they ended up there. They deliberately went to go find somewhere he could just find an open space. And it was perfect because there was no one there because they were closing the following day.
Did he stay there on?
No. I think he only stayed for the one night. They told him you can stay, but we don't have room service. We won't have, big meals. We'll just be able to do light food and that kind of stuff for you, but we won't be able, all the kitchen staff has gone home, all the porter staff are gone home. You have to carry your own bag.
Here's a hot plate, a microwave, and a crate of super noodles.
That doesn't sound too bad. But yeah, I think the bit that freaked me out the most, I'm always freaked out by tunnels, but it's not a tunnel. It's like half the side of the building meets half the side of the bedrock that they blew into to create the rest of the building. So, on one side of the room, it looks like normal brickwork, and then on the other side, there's all these jagged edges sticking out, and I'm like, I don't think I'd be too keen on sending my staff in and out there.
Something I want to have a look at a picture of.
I will show you a picture. It's actually pretty cool. Yeah, this way's better, because then I can show you a couple of them. So you walk down that corridor and take a right, and then you can see all the piping and all the electrics, and then just a random tree root hanging out of it. That would be the spookiest part for me, because
trees, they're scary.
No, I don't mean that. I'm a firm believer that, I told you this before, I think buildings are sometimes what are haunted, and then sometimes people are haunted. And the reason buildings would be haunted is because of that tape thing I was telling you about. So I think echoes and impressions are left on places when you might not hear anyone who died down there. You just might hear an echo or a replay of staff running in and out from the 40s or from the 50s. Do you know what I mean? So it's that would probably be the spookiest part for me. But the hotel is stunning. It's kept quite a lot of its old features.
Oh, that looks fancy.
I think that's the main staircase. But the Stanley Hotel hasn't had anyone that died there that I'm aware of. I don't think anyone's died in hotel rooms, like the massacre that happened in the Banff Hotel or anything like that. I don't know. I heard recently as well that you don't necessarily only haunt the places that haunted you while you were alive. Sometimes people go back to places that they were really happy in.
Oh, okay.
So if it's a case that this young girl had passed away, she might have gone back to the hotel because it would have been a nice time that she spent with her family and stuff like that.
Possibly, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, that's nice. You're going back to your nice memory while you're freaking everybody else to freak out.
Couldn't make it under the stairs. There's a couple of motorbikes.
I think that's it. Oh, so Stanley was the inventor of the steam car.
Ah, yeah.
So that's probably what that is. He owned Stanley Steam Motors or something like that.
Okay,
so that's probably what that is. But the place is gorgeous. It's really, really old, and they've just kept it in such good nick. But when it snows, the place pretty much all but disappears.
Cool. I love them kind of hotels.
Yeah. Have you got any characters for me?
A couple of people. So, Lizzie, you know what I'm going to say. It's got to be Kathy Bates.
It has to be Kathy Bates.
Bring her back. Bring back
yeah,
Kathy.
because we didn't
Bring
have
back
her
Kathy.
last episode.
Yeah, she was on annual leave. Now, tell me who plays Paul Blart. What's his name?
Oh my goodness.
Something Hart, isn't it?
No, that's Kevin Hart you're thinking of.
Alexa, who plays Paul Blart?
This might answer your question. Kevin James plays Paul Blart.
And there you have it, folks. Kevin James.
Yes.
He'd make it, because he played Paul Blart, security cop.
Who's definitely qualified for the job.
Yeah, it's a bit of...
Oh, he'd look really cute in a bellboy suit.
Yeah.
Or a...
There wasn't many other really main characters in there that had a bit of... There was a lot of children you mentioned. Let's just chuck in the Olsen twins.
Yeah, because they weren't spooky when they were growing up.
Lord Donovan. I'm thinking somebody Scottish.
That's weird because he was Irish.
Okay, so let's pick some Irish then.
Oh, I don't really want to actually pick anyone because apparently he was not the most pleasant man. In fact, Stanley wanted to call the hotel. Oh, he wanted to call it some variation of his name, and there was a 180 something person petition signed to get him not to. So I like all people. I like all Irish people, so I don't want to name anybody.
Oh, okay.
Colin Farrell.
Do you not like Colin Farrell?
I do like Colin
He's just
Farrell,
a great actor.
but he is very versatile.
He's the new penguin, apparently.
Stop!
Yeah, he's got a big penguin suit.
Well, he would need that to be the penguin. That's actually going to be... That'll be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was any other main characters. Really.
No, nothing worth filling.
Cool. Would you like to know the rabbit hole I fell
give it to
down?
me.
Now, remember the other day you and I were talking about the Mandela effect, and I could not think of one single example. I managed to find a whole bunch of examples.
Right, give me them.
Now, I don't think the first one really applies to us because we don't have this here, I don't think. But if I said Jif or Jiffy, which do you think, don't read it, which do you think would be the American brand of peanut butter?
By process of elimination, I'm going to guess it's Jiffy, because Jif used to be what we called the oven top cleaner. They changed it to Sif.
No.
Well, am I right saying Jiffy's peanut butter?
No, Jif is actually the name of it, and I thought you'd know that because that was the peanut butter that your man from Stranger Things got his hands on when he went into the church. That's the only reason I know, because I know we don't have. I've eaten peanut butter once in my life as well. I was pregnant. Okay, so the original recording simply ends in "No time for losers, because we are the champions," and then nothing else.
Oh yeah.
But do you remember him singing "Of the World"?
If I sing the tune in my head, then the "Of the World" is there.
That's what the Mandela effect is. It's when people genuinely remember. No, hang on. I remember it was the Bernstein Bears, not the Bernstein Bears. Pikachu. What colour is his tail? A lot of people seem to think that Pikachu's tail was yellow with a black lightning strike.
But the tail is in a lightning strike.
The tail is in a lightning strike, yeah, but it's just yellow.
It looks like his tail got caught in the door.
Yeah. The next one there that I saw was Luke, I am your father is probably one of the greatest misremembered lines. However, the line is simply, no, I am your father. But for years, I thought it was Luke, I am your father. In fact, every time I stand behind the fan, that's what I do, because that's what we 80s kids do. Like, kids nowadays have like mobile phones when they're the age of 4, whereas we talk into the back of the room fan and we're like, Luke, I am your father.
Alexa, what does Darth Vader mean in German?
I don't know that one.
Alexa not know that one. I remember that from Pitch Perfect. So doesn't she say Darth Vader literally means...
Spoiler, yeah, so if you're German watching the movie, you know this already. It's spoiler alert.
Oh, I can imagine all the Germans walking out.
The movie is called...
I know secrets.
The movie's basically like, hey, Luke, I'm your dad. Not Star Wars, just like, I'm your dad, Luke.
Now, do you remember the Flintstones or the Flintstones? Tea or no tea?
I always remember it as the Flintstones, not the Flins, because now that I'm thinking of it, we put the two together. If Flintstone is there making a fire,
yeah.
Yeah.
As an adult, it makes sense, but as a kid, you always say the Flintstones. Like, you don't say the Flintstones.
It's one of them Irish things where you're saying the word in your own accent, like tree. I'm saying 3, but sound comes out as tree. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I'm saying Flintstones, in my head I'm saying Flintstones, but I ain't got the time. To be pronunciations.
That's why most Irish people would say, oh, this used to drive my mom absolutely bonkers.
We all used to say that, yeah.
In my house, it was, would you like bread and butter? Would you like some water? And we used to pronounce our T's because, God, if we didn't, life was not worth living. It's just, no. Hello, Clarice. Never said in the movie. Not once was it ever said in the movie. Some people swear that he greets her with, hello, Clarice. But in actuality, he simply says, good morning. He never says, good morning, Clarice. He never says, the cracks, Clarice.
Yeah, but he says Clarice so many times in the movie that and the way he says Clarice, it's like Clarice. I can't do it.
A bottle of Chianti.
A bottle of Chianti and some lima beans.
That's so funny though, because even from like a tiny age, you'd walk in and you'd be like, hello, Clarice, and she wouldn't even see it and she'd know it was you. You terrified her into loving you. The next one there, probably one of the most lazy Halloween costumes ever is the costume from costume from Risky Business. What does the costume consist of, Stephen?
A white shirt and sunglasses.
Tom Cruise was not wearing sunglasses. He wore a pair of socks so he could slide across the floor, a pair of tidy whities, and a white shirt.
Am I thinking of Love Actually then, when he slides across the floor?
I don't think he's wearing sunglasses either.
Right, go on.
Last one there is...
You skipped one.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I did. Sorry. Looney Tunes or Looney Tunes? What do you remember?
You said that backwards.
I did. Don't look at it.
I'm looking at the text, the big bold, the entrance.
Here, I'll help.
I don't know. No, I know that. Yeah, I think I remember Looney Tunes, TUNES, not TOONS.
Which makes no sense.
Which makes no sense. But
no sense, because they sang a couple of tunes, yeah, but there were more tunes, as in cartoons.
Cartoons, yeah. Oh, wow.
The last one then, and this one got me because I'm a big fan of the old Disney movies. The evil queen at the beginning of the movie, I think it is, she doesn't say mirror, mirror on the wall. What she actually says is magic mirror on the wall. So what we say is mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, but she never says mirror, mirror.
That's copyright infringement, though. That's the reason why we don't say the actual word, because there's some Disney
guy, will come for us.
Some lawyer with 2 big Mickey Mouse ears will come out and be like, I'm suing you.
Have you any questions for me? That was a shorter-ish episode.
You might have to trim that short episode.
I will.
From 40 minutes to something smaller.
It'll probably be about 20 minutes.
Okay.
So we finish up?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you have any questions regarding today's or any other episode, please feel free to DM us on our Instagram. It's What's the Story Ghost. If you have any personal stories you would like to share with us, our email is whatsthestoryghost@gmail.com. And those are all my words.
Exit jingle.
Exit jingle.
Popeye the Sandman.
Bye.